Boom. Hey, I'm Thundercloud. Mum calls me James. You can call me James, but I prefer it if you call me Thundercloud. Washing away the garbage, leaving rainbows after rains. It's Chillin Tuesday on the 29th of October 2024. Let's have some poetic games with this guy with this name, W.F. Flexmore Hudson. What a cool name. That'd have to be the coolest poet name I've ever heard, Flexmore. Wow. No. Thundercloud. That's the coolest poet name, yeah. Well, thunderclouds are cool, of course, because, you know, the water cycle, water evaporates on a hot day, goes up, condenses up in the sky. When thundercloud becomes a thundercloud in the sky, where it's cool, that's why it condenses. And then it goes, boom! Welcome to Chillin Tuesday once again. I already said that. I'm going to have a sip of my ginger and lemon tea here. Yummy, yummy. Lemon and ginger tea is good for me. And you can get these mugs here from the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. See how cool that is? And there's a heap of other ones as well. So, yeah, check them out on the website, Australian Poetry Hall of Fame.com.au. And, hey, you, listen. Yeah, there's a whole lot of merchandise there, as well as on meanwhileinaustralia.com. And it all supports the ongoing efforts to keep poetry alive in this country, Australia, and to celebrate the poets of the past and to nurture the poets of the future, because I want to grow poetry big and huge, because it should be, because it's a wonderful art, it's a wonderful way for people to express themselves, and it's cathartic, and it's entertaining too. It's all of the above. Poetry is just what I love. Anyway, tonight, W.F. Flexmore Hudson is our Jindyworobak Poet of the Night. Now, what do I mean the Jindyworobaks? Well, they were a group of poets from the 30s and 40s who were attempting to introduce a sort of an Australian nationalist flavour to poetry, but in a sort of a bushy kind of Indigenous way, and add these kind of Australian themes to our poetry. So it was, I don't mean nationalist like, you know, Heil Hitler, that kind of stuff. I mean nationalist like you know, proud of, I guess, patriots really, and trying to celebrate really just the Australian bush in a way. Yeah, that kind of thing. So Flexmore Hudson, he was one poet who did a lot for poetry and celebrating and nurturing other poets, actually at the expense of his own poetry. So, yeah, it sort of made, when I learned that, it really made me reflect, you know, like how much I put in here, and how much, you know, at times it does eat into my time where I'd like to be working on poetry as well. But anyway, that's another thing. That's my own thing to deal with. But let's get on, and I'll tell you a little bit about Flexmore Hudson here. I'm reading this from the Australian Dictionary of Biography. His full name was Wilfred Frank Flexmore Hudson. Like, even his first name, you know, Wilfred, like, that's cool. Wilfred Frank, W.F. Flexmore. It's like, yeah, Flexmore Hudson. 1913 to 1988. This article was published in the Australian Dictionary of Biography, Volume 17, in 2007. W.F. Flexmore Hudson was a poet, short story writer, and a school teacher. He was born on the 22nd of September 1913 at Charters Towers. He's the eldest of 4 sons of Wilfred Flexmore Hudson, a Tasmanian-born Baptist minister, and his wife Irene Maud Nee Rathbone from Rockhampton. The family moved often before settling in Adelaide in 1924. Flexmore attended 13 primary schools in Australia and New Zealand, completing his secondary education at Adelaide High School. He was a keen rower, sculler, swimmer and boxer. A student at Adelaide Teachers College, he also enrolled in arts faculty at the University of Adelaide. He didn't finish his degree. He taught at small country schools, including Narawi, 1936, Caliph, 1937, Hammond, 1939 to 41, and Lucindale, 1942 to 45. January the 17th, 1938, he married Adele in Adelaide. Hudson married Myrle Desmond. And in 1941, he launched Poetry, an influential periodical that he edited for 6 years and which was initially very successful. Although a friend of Rex Ingemel's, he was a lukewarm Jindyworobak supporter, not sharing the enthusiasm for Aboriginal culture that partly characterised the movement. Invited to edit the 1943 Jindyworobak anthology, he chose an initial selection of poems deemed by Ingemel's to be insufficiently Jindyworobak. Hudson made a few changes and the anthology was published, more or less with Ingemel's blessing. In 1946, Hudson resigned from the Education Department and freelanced. He wrote for the ABC and produced children's history that was serialised in educational comic and later published as a book, The Story of the Polynesians, in 1948. Living off the proceeds of a Commonwealth Literary Fund fellowship awarded in 1946, he began a novel but abandoned it. Forced to discontinue poetry in 1947 and left with a crippling debt of $400, he escaped to sea in a schooner for about a year. Not like a glass of beer, but a schooner kind of boat. In 1950 to 63, he was a senior English master at Scotch College. Also the school's rowing coach. He was proud of the success achieved by his teams. He later taught at King's College, Henley High and Adelaide Boys High Schools, retiring in 1978. As a writer, Hudson had a minor but distinct talent. He published 6 books of poetry between 1937 and 59, displaying in them a lyrical skill in depicting the Australian landscape and tendency to polemicise. Probably the collections as Iron Hills, poems in 1944, and Pools of the Cinnabar Range, 1955, contain the best examples of his poetry. Song of Australia and Drought have frequently been anthologised, while his reflective philosophical To a Cuttlefish was thought by the poet himself to be probably his best work. In 1985, a collection of his short stories, Tales from Corey Teller, compiled and edited by Adam Dutkowitz, was published. Humanist, Hudson leaned towards Buddhism. He'd been active in the peace movement and the Fellowship of Australian Writers in the 1950s. Despite a succession of life-threatening illnesses, he was fit and physically compact with handsome features. As you can see, he's quite a handsome-looking man. He's very dapper. And brown hair. He usually supported a small moustache, and later years developed diabetes and Alzheimer's disease and suffered stroke. Survived by his son, he died on the 14th of May 1988 at Kings Park, Adelaide, and was cremated. His select bibliography. Australian Little Magazines from 1923 to 1954, the Jindyworobaks, Flexmore Hudson, the Torrens Park Estate, and then there were papers as well. And that's only a very short biography of his bibliography, I ought to say. Right, let me have another drink. Now, the book over here, the Jindyworobaks book here that I've got, this was published by the University of Queensland Press in 1979. And I'll read you out, first of all, the editor's note about Flexmore Hudson. Wilfred Flexmore Hudson was born at Charters Towers, which we already know, in 1913. Moved to Adelaide and became a school teacher. Yeah, all right. His books, all verse, include Ashes and Sparks, 1937, In the Wind's Teeth, 1940, With the First Soft Rain, 1943, Indelible Voices, 1943, As Iron Hills, 1944, Pools of the Cinnabar Range, 1959. He was editor of Poetry Magazine, 1941 to 1947, and wrote many uncollected short stories. The first one I've got for you tonight is called Song. I sing thee, sweet, my heart was the barest. Desert, then love digged a well. Now the wind runs over the fairest. Blossoms thy hid springs to tell. But pierce its hard soil and unsought, where one will. Thy waters reach up to my thought. Give it life till derision, the rose in her burning, flings to the stars above. And the dark of the desert is waning, lit with oasis of love. Nice song that's called. The next one by Flexmore Hudson, The Poet and the World Today. My heart is a last year's nest in a broken bough, a dried up well, the clay sides crumbling, a dream of fair smiling faces, a long time now sour festered in the sod. The embers of a home where once child voices rang, a withered hand insensate that once made love's caress. A forest of gaunt dead trees in crucifixion on ashen sky. My heart is such, my heart is driftwood, flotsam and jetsam on the ocean's rim, the love that is hopeless, the skeleton moon that a callous sun bleaches in the desert of night. All right, well, the next one I've got for you here by Flexmore Hudson. If you like that, if you like those two first ones, give it a thumbs up. Do it now, please. Thank you. I want you to give it. Thank you very much. Good on you. Well done. Next one, Sonnet, 1935. Slaves, you are slaves, my people, to the lust and greed of thieves who mock your wretched lot, who starve you while machines stand still and rust, and crops are burnt, food dumped, and cattle shot, while tax-gorged states waste wealth-preparing guns, and tanks and poison gas to blot out life. Disease feeds on your daughters and your sons. Beauty is scoffed at, pity scorned in strife. In swarming cities, millions now are born, too small, fame, thirsty powers who see elsewhere. Of vast empty fields you wake at each sad dawn, to threats of war and death, days long despair. Yet love, your mad disorder has defied. Woe if to you as me love were denied. You like that one? I like that one. I really like that one, actually. I love those last two lines. Yet love, your mad disorder has defied. Woe if to you as me love were denied. Yeah, profound. Really lovely words. All right. Are you a subscriber to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame YouTube channel yet? You're not? You better, just click on it now and you'll get all these different poetry videos about all these wonderful Australian poetry in your notification thing. If you click on that bell up the top up there, ding, ding, you know, that one. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. All right. The Farmer. Star mist was on the hills. The cows had been fed. It was twilight, soft and windless, and the trees in the west tipped with red. I walked with the farmer through the brown ploughed field while the dogs drove the sheep ahead. We had to shout in that babble of lambs bleating, in long bursts of hunger that fell into hushes while the ewes ran from lamb to lamb, frenziedly sniffing, searching with strange little rushes. And the rams turned to stamp at the dogs. And though I had lived with the man in his home, seen him 1,000 times with his children and wife, I had not known before such tenderness to come into his face as he raised a sick lamb from its rest and, folding its forelegs gently, carried it close to his breast. Whoa! So what else goes on here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame? Well, all kinds of events. At the end of November, we've got So I Says to Mabel, that's November 30th. They're a punk band coming here. Yeah, check that out in our events page on us under AustralianPoetryHallOfFame.com.au. Then also, I think it's the 7th of December, we've got or the 12th, I'm not too sure on that, Fiore Musicali are coming back here for a Christmas poetry, it's a Christmas chorale music because they do like choir music, a beautiful Christmas chorale music, choir music here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. But the big one that's really coming up is, yes, you've got 2 weeks left for late entries in the Australian Poetry Film Contest. If you want to get a film in, you still can. It's not too late. So check it out on filmfreeway.com, Australian Poetry Film Contest. And as well as that, we've got the Poets on the Mountain Festival in just over 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks away here at Guyra, the 15th, 16th and 17th of November. Yes, we've got workshops on the Friday. They're $70 and you can get your tickets online. Check that out on our event page. As well as that, there's events on a Saturday and Sunday. So check that all out. The Poets on the Mountain Festival here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame in Guyra. All right, let's get on with a bit more Flexmore Hudson. Now, what have I got for you from Flexmore? What have I got? Well, right. We've got the 2A boy on his 11th birthday. When I think of him and his boyish love for me, my heart is grateful and at peace. The sun stands overhead, the wheat crops ripening. My vines are laden with purple grapes. My sheep grow heavy with wool on the grass-covered hills. And when I see his eyes so trustfully search my face, believing that I can explain the mysteries of life, I am a little downcast, knowing my insufficiency. When I see how he strives to act and speak for my approval, I would be nobler for his sake. Part 2. Watching him at play with his schoolmates or racing his pony, I admire his slim 11-year-old limbs, the supple, small-hipped frame, the slender neck, the finely balanced head, the firm, tanned face, the innocent, inquiring eyes that life's injustices will hurt. And I see that he is perfect and lament that he must change, that spring must cease and the blossom perish and sun descend at noon. The moonflower petals fade. I'm afraid for him. My heart is sore that he must come to manhood in such troublous, dangerous years, when the few are fabulously rich, the many poor and hungry, and brooding on rebellion, when oppression and hatred are so rife, so many nations, vast armed camps. Part 3. Strange that these young lips must pale with passion. These eyes speak want, this shrill voice sound with pleading. These limbs strain the limbs of a lover. Strange that a man's consuming loves and hates must play upon that smooth, unblemished face, transforming it with wrinkle, fold and line. Strange that this serene young heart must wake to anger, be humiliated, scorned, embittered, perhaps betrayed by friends, its love go unrequited. And oh, I hope he, too, will be a lover of mankind, imposing no distinctions of race or colour or class, eager to help all peoples reap the riches of science and art. And I hope he will fight to abolish poverty, which is so shameful in a world so rich. Such hope is sunrise over spring-clad hills, the flash of silver wing in a clear summer sky. My heart is light, and I exult as one who has this moment paid an impoverishing debt, as one who after years of the blind, darkened sick room walks in the sun at last. And oh, I hope he can be fiercely honest, unrelenting in proud integrity, never constrained to prostitute his soul, never be a teacher believing in love, yet having to preach imperialism, or an artist who smutches the face of beauty to please the vulgar who hate what is finer than themselves. May he never have to profit by injustice, never have to sweat the helpless, unenlightened poor, never a soldier deceived by empty words into fighting those whom he does not hate. But often, when I think how men are beaten, the flower of their nobility despoiled by the wind of poverty, or by the too hot sun of sudden riches, or by the chill of enslaving passions, I'm afraid for him. And in the hours when men as self-directing creatures seem merely contemptible, capable only of contriving mischief, and the wanton destruction of their kind, when I am apprehensive of the downfall of our too haughty, machine-tortured civilization, a dark tide beats on my crumbling cliffs. My hope is scattered as the desert sand. A blight is on my leaves, the rank roots of despair suck at the skeleton that is my heart, the sunk floor and the sagging beam, that is my heart. Powerful. Mallee Farm at dusk. The ringing flight of a startled bird and the thud of my horse's hoofs were the only sunset sounds I heard. On the track that wound through the Mallee plain to the squat pug huts with the sun-tinged roofs. In the stony straw-blown clearing, but at the gate as I drew rein, an eager bird burst into song, and, without dismounting, I listened there so long that now the memories of that strain to every golden dusk belong. With a rabbit's cry and a plover's swooping, drowsy clouds stretching themselves for rest, and the full-blown petals of a windmill drooping, stirless in the lonely west. The next one, Drought. Midsummer noon and the timber walls start in the heat, and the children sag listlessly over the desks, with bloodless faces oozing sweat, sipped by the stinging flies. Outside, the tall sun fades the shabby mallee and drives the ants deep underground. The stony drift sand shrivels, the drab, sparse plants. There's not a cloud in the sky to cast a shadow on the tremulous plain. Stirless, the windmills, thirsty cattle standing, despondent about empty tanks, stamping and tossing their heads in torment of the flies from dawn to dusk. For 10 parched days it has been like this, and although I love the desert, I have found myself dreaming of upright gums by a mountain creek where the red boronia blooms, where bellbirds chime through the morning mists and greenness can hide from the sun, of rock holes where the brumbies slink like swift cloud shadows from the Gidgee scrub to drink when the moon is low. And as I stood to drink, I too, just as I raised my cup hands to my lips, I am recalled to the drought-stricken plain by the petulant question of a summer-wearied child. Next one by Flexmore Hudson. As the fugitive grass, that's what it's called, as the fugitive grass. My sole ambition was to leave my race, some landmark for those travellers who turn, bewildered to and fro at dusk in this place of multitudinous crossroads and contradictory signposts. I dreamed of fame and in my folly went near to neglecting love, but I am now prouder to shape for you poems of thankfulness, as delicate and unpretentious as the fugitive grass that the first rains bring to the naked clearings of the Mallee. Yes, lovely. The next one is called Mallee Scene, Scene. On the death-still plain, 2 steel rails glare. Then a lame, scorched train limps from the cutting's golden flare, as if each slow pant hurts, and a sorry flock of crows goes up with a shiver of air, and a faint hair spurts from his squat on jerky limbs, while thin clouds pass and pitilessly mock the thirsting mallee scrub that the drift sand rims. Next one's called Mallee Courage. Obviously, he lived in the Mallee a lot. Have in me the silent courage of this Mallee plain that still bears brittle leaves beneath the haggard skies in time of drought, when drift sand buries the hard-bitten boughs and birds have flown. The courage that unflinchingly endures the angry years till the winds hiss the rain on new grass, and the crickets in the scrub and the birds wake the sun with their singing. Next one, Male Night, Mallee Store. The sun sets, the parrots fly, screeching from the stacks. The schoolboys leave their play and canter past. The windowless afterglow turns grey while down the rooty tracks the wagons rattle home. We light the lamp at last, and just as the moon from the drift draws near, we sit down to dinner and long swig of beer. Andrew, this is called. Andrew and I used to ride in the hills and swim in the warm lagoon and listen together to parrot trills and larks that soared with the moon. And we laughed and sang and took every chance of a kiss on the long drive home from a dance. But now the hills are very far away. The bank has the farm, the homestead's leased, and I am cooped in a room all day while Andrew's gone to be a priest. And I wonder if still when he kneels to pray, he dreams in the silent dark of his cell of bronzy hills and parrots and the hack he rode so well. Interesting. Interesting. And the hack he rode so well. Yeah. Prayer to Alexander Konstantinovich Platonov. I'm sure that has some meaning in history somewhere. When an ulcerous anger lit by the cruel shams and greed of the many men I hate burns into my desert hardy soul, I would there might be given, then as now, a glimpse of the eternal rhythms of the universe and love, vast as the skies that ring this Mallee plain with dawn, and the patience of the thirsting Mallee soil that keeps its seeds without once failing through the fires and frosts of drought. Okay. The next one I've got for you is called Song of an Australian, and it's in a couple of parts, 3 parts. Part 1 is the longest. Part 1. I've travelled my land, my heart big with pride, coming on many a township doused in the sun, riding for hundreds of miles through the sheep-clotted plains that tremble at noon like the bed of a running stream, watching with lazy eyes the blue mirage recede before me through a sunburnt day, stopping at homesteads that nestle in the gums. I have crossed our mountains, amazed at the hues of sunset and sunrise on timberlit slopes, drawing rain in rapture. On many a spur, I have swum across our creeks and forded them on horse. I have seen the almond and the apple picked, the cherry, the olive, the mango and the grape. I have watched the red sun float upon our tropic seas and set the sails of purling fleets on fire. And I have wandered through the coastal cities, gazing on the people, the traffic and the shops, gladder to stroke a broken-winded cart horse than goggle at ingenious machines. I know the city's splendour and their wealth. I know their slums. So I have learnt to love the Mallee Moor and the blue salt bush and the desert and the little ports where wheat ships load at Jarrah jetties. Part 2. I am proud to be Australian and I love all trees Australian, birds and beasts, all ranges and their rivers yearn for them, as the stars that reach their hands to our still lagoon must yearn. Part 3. I know Australians, most of you go poor in the richest land on earth, and I am angry, yet I still exult. You have the courage of our desert trees that heave green leaves from famished sands, undauntedly surviving drought and fire and flood. I love you. I am by in all your sorrows, feel your setbacks, share your pioneering pride. I promise I shall ever sing your land's beauty and the greatness of your soul. The next one, very short, gum tree, 3 lines. Its trunk is a shadowy track across the plain. Its branches hug a snoring mountain close. Top twigs clutch the clouds that sunrise climbs. Profound. Next one, to Myrtle, and then you sang. And then you sang, and all at once the night, the warm moon low to the roofs and the purple hills beyond your face, took on a beauty I had missed before, and then I understood my need of you, my long, unutterable need. I knew at once we had to make a perilous journey down the years, not staying long in orchard gullies, towns or ports, but making tracks across the furthest ranges and the Gibber Plains, risking all the deserts, the bushfires and the treacherous creeks in flood. I knew at once our love would heal the sores of money, relieve the cureless ache of sorrows, and forever find new beauty in the loneliest, bare and stony places. All right, next we've got a quatrain, 4 lines that is, called Magpies. From every gum in the gully creek came sweeter songs than moonlight ever fetched. The sunrise blazed on the coldest peak and wakening shadows stretched. That's Magpies by Flexmore Hudson. The next one by Flexmore Hudson, it's a 2-liner. Black Cockatoos. Black cockatoos high in the gold of sunrise, swooping down past gum trees upon an alien pine. The next one, Sundown by Flexmore Hudson. Galahs going home to the creek gums circle. Above me, breasts aflame, drowning the magpies' warbles with their cries. Piled high with sandwood, a squeaky cart slowly, lazily lumbers up the road. One by one, the windows of the little township glow. But I stay a long time trying to distinguish the purple plain from the purple mountains from the purple clouds. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. We've still got quite a lot to get through of Flexmore Hudson here. Not that much, really. Maybe I'll do it another night. To Edgar H. Mercer, from Sonnets on the Wall. If sometimes I forgot you or lightly bore your going, it was before this bitterness, before this sleepless pain, made me fear your memories of our friendship would be growing. Faint with despair, and should we ever meet again. But now, when the range is purple and the magpie sings and the horses jog to water through a dust of gold, each galah coming home to our creek gums brings a longing to share with you this beauty as of old. So often I'm sad, even sad nights when her breath sleeps on my cheek, and a mountain shows lips to kiss, wanting for you a peace no war can mar, wanting for you too to love and outwit death. I'm sad, all I can do is never miss to wish you good luck daily wherever you are. Galahs. Cherry blossoms fell from the skeleton boughs of a mallee and returned, and lo, they were galahs. Cherry blossoms fell from the skeleton boughs of a mallee and returned, and lo, they were galahs. That's fascinating. What a great like picture that is. Yeah, cherry blossoms fell from the skeleton boughs of a mallee. Yeah, great. The next one I've got from Flexmore Hudson is called War. I can appreciate the satisfaction of preserving traditions of empire and of providing opportunities of promotion for the army. Doubtless, without these, our civilization would not be what it is. But what of the low browed slum lad who is tricked into hate by lies? What of the girl turned nun to escape from the world and lost to love? I can appreciate the satisfaction of statesmen making grandiloquent gestures safe, full of the limelight, tipsy with pride and power. But what of the young wife who dares not have a child for fear of unemployment, conscription, invasion, poverty, and worry? I can appreciate the satisfaction in armament firms. I can appreciate the satisfaction of armament firms, steel cartels, oil combines, and all of their investors. Doubtless their wealth is the keystone of our culture. But what of the student who turns away from his microscope, the poet from his song, heartsick, unsettled, asking, what good is their work in a world that mocks at their dreams? Mm. Well, the next one, that's going to be interesting. As seeds through years of drought. Conclusion. And there's a note here. This was from the original Jindyworobak anthology in 1941. This poem forms part 4 of With the First Soft Rain, 1943. And this is the end of it, right? Okay. As seeds through years of drought. Now it is cooling, lank shadows inch towards the east. More birds are busy in the pepper tree. The grey gums now look cold. On the hills, they're burning off. The smoke mounts like a tree to a cloud. Over in Europe, smoke hangs high over a burning, shattered land. Millions there are dying and glad to die because of pain. Planes sow bombs in cities crowded as hives. Children insane with fear dig the earth, hands and their teeth to hide. Tanks make jam of wounded men. Flamethrowers roast the tank crews. Men shoot, gas, choke, bayonet, crush, drown, bury one another. But worst of all, in every land, men are beginning to believe evil of their own soul, beginning to lose heart and fear, that wars and suffering are as remote from our control as the rotation of a spiral nebula. And against this sad despair, I raise my cry. A mere poet sprawling in the sun, I laugh defeatists down. If there is evil now, it was determined by the injustice and ignorant cruelty of the past. Knowing this, we need not to pray the future to evil. Beauty is our spirit's lasting hunger, so we shall ever strive, since beauty is born of love, to build a world that we can love. All acts of thought will in that world be beautiful. Empires may tumble, generations be poisoned by hatred, fall, whole nations slip back into darkness. Here now, we need not despair. That noble act, that plain vast thought, that song, they are not lost, they are enregistered. We have felt their beauty time, can promise no greater discovery, not even death. We must be like our desert grass, endure as seeds through years of drought, to race green shoots to rapid flowers with the first soft rain. You and I are sufficient to prove the nobility of man. When I see you bitter and disheartened, I can no longer bother to rhyme a poetry song. I want to help you climb the mountain of my courage. I want to tell you that our sun is young in astronomic time. There are many million years for man to shape his life by the truths we poets know. Many million years to discover that beauty in the darkest dower of life to be bought without money or power. Millions of years, long before that some race will end. The tragic misery of our disordered days. Now it is sundown. Not a bee or an ant can be seen. Not a starling shakes the pepper tree. The late galah going home to the creek is black against blue ranges. Soon the eastern hills will be red with afterglow. Far out on the plain a young bull is bloating his want. There is no mistaking what he means. We, too, poets, must bloat what we want. Men must not mistake what we mean. One low star shows red in the west. I am happy still. I have sent up this shout, this blorting, before I too am poisoned by horror or hate, before misery sends me mad or withers thought, while I am still happy. All right. Well, I'm going to call it a night there. Thank you for joining me on Chillin Tuesday Poetcast, and I will finish Flexmore Hudson in 2 weeks' time for Chillin Tuesday in 2 weeks, because next week I've got the Armidale Poets down there and on a Tuesday night, and I don't do that. So yeah, if you're interested in poetry and you live in Armidale, the Armidale Poets meets on the first Tuesday of the month, 7 o'clock, at the Armidale Bowls Club, and we sort of sit over in the corner as you come on in. So you'll see me there and whoever else, Brian. Yeah, check it out. Come along if you're in Armidale. Hey, well, that's it. Make sure you've given this a thumbs up. Check out our events on the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame.com.au/events page. There's heaps happening. And yeah, I am Thundercloud, and I will see you in probably 2 weeks here on Chillin Tuesday. See you later.